Hello, and welcome back to the cabin. We're here for the full reading of book 3. First book was This Canoe is Heavy. Second book is in full read as well, In Search of the Little Green Valley. And this is book 3, Home is Calling. This is the final book in the series by Grandmother Gentle Bear. My throat's dry. I'm going to need some hot tea. Can't have the stories without good hot tea. We cleansed, we burned some cedar and sage. We've got some of our country food, variety of dried wild mushrooms. My lemon tree is doing really well. We've got some fresh smoked meat. Some here is really dry. This one's nice. And then of course we have the moose meat, deer jerky, some dried yams, cranberries, currants, some large rose hips, some small rose hips, and some dried herbs. We had harvest last week and we had pumpkin and squash out, but we're going into later in the year now. It's more about dried foods. I'm going to try this. Very good. All right, we've had our snack. We better pour some more tea. Book 3. Home is Calling. Now in book 2 we left off. She was winter bound, doing very well. She meaning Grandmother Gentle Bear. So chapter 1. Coming out of the den. It's been a long cold winter. My hands are sore from sewing, hides, and beading. My eyes have dimmed a bit and sensitive to bright sunlight outside, but they're slowly adjusting. I've been happy all winter. Many rabbits in the snares, enough to sew all the fur hides together to make a large blanket for my bunk, and a few scraps to fur line the moccasins and mitts. I go out on the ice almost every day. I chop away the water hole and collect water for the cabin, and I put a line in for fresh fish. The smoked and dried fish have held out and kept me alive, but it's nice to have fresh fish over the fire, and of course fish soup. Your teeth can get sore from the jerky, and it's a lot of hard chewing, so I cut up the deer or moose jerky and make soup too. It's important to have dried stored greens, or your teeth might loosen or even fall out. Soup is a warm and healthy way to eat whatever your body needs. I hear the early chickadees, they're migrating, they'll be here for the winter now. I can hear them. Some of the animals have stayed all winter too. It's been a restful winter in the warm cabin. It wasn't so much the loneliness. I have the birds and animals. I miss conversation with the people I love. I'll consider my return to the village later in the summer. The bright sunlight is warm on my face and the air has a fresh rainy smell. Even the birds' songs are happier and brighter, and spring is on its way. I'll plan a hike to higher ground to get a good look around, but there's still a lot of snow, so I'll spend more time in La Forêt in the trees, watching the snow melt from the tall pines. The ice is just breaking and cracking with a bit of water flow and open water. This is when you don't go on the ice no matter what. It's exciting to watch the ice heaving and rolling and crashing into each other. Soon the ice will be gone and I'll be fishing with a net, fresh fish, and restock the smoker. My little friend, the limping fox, has remained around camp and warned off any bears that came near camp, which was a few times over the winter. He's an old bear, probably an ancestor, checking to see how well I made the cold. He's not afraid of the crippled fox. He just tolerates him and is annoyed by the screams and doesn't hang around too long or too close. Then Fox limps around like he was tougher than the old bear. It's funny, a funny sight to see. Many winter birds kept me company, and I couldn't help but give them dry crumbs from old hard bannock. And they sang and chirped and kept me from feeling sad and lonely. The days were short, and the nights long and cold. I slept more than I ever have. The body heals when you sleep, and I feel pretty good, and I'm ready to come out of the den. There will be many new bear cubs born over the winter and coming out of their dens for the first time. I might see some when I go up mountain. A hot flask of tea and a few bites to eat for a long trail ahead. Chapter 2, Hairy Man. I'm ready with my pack to head up the mountain to have a look around, but not too high. There's still a lot of snow waiting to melt and nourish the valleys below. A good walking stick to steady my way and ready my feet for a good mountain hike. I haven't gone far, and there's a big black bear with 2 small cubs heading across the valley to enjoy early young shoots of grass and the first wild flowers of spring. Best to stay out of her way and downwind. Bears are hungry and dangerous in the spring, but there's another black outline of something way down by the creek mouth. Another smaller bear eating something on shore. I turn to see where the cubs are, following Mother Bear deep into the valley, and look back to the creek, and the smaller bear is gone. I need to head back to camp. I've seen all I need to see for now, and spring is almost here. There's a black shape along the tree line. Might be the lone bear, until it stands up behind a large pine. I look away and I look back. It's still there. I'm still heading towards the cabin, but I'm a ways yet. I keep glancing towards the tree line. Finally, I see its dark silhouette move back through the trees and gone. Most encounters with the hairy man are just glimpses, then gone. But when the creature stares and watches and you see it fade into the forest, it's unsettling. It would be. We've always known of the hairy man of the wilds and the woods. Some parents scare children so they won't wander too far. Once you have an encounter or a sighting, then you decide if it scares you. I know you'll never forget it. You'll replay it over and over in your head, slowly filling in details that you remember. What time of day? How long was the encounter? What did you see? What color was the fur? How tall was it? And did it leave any footprints? Yes, footprints. And the sounds of low howls and grunts. Long, low, that get a high pitched and then back down low. Blood-curdling screams and crying shrieks, not like a cougar. And their screams, it's different. Sometimes they almost sound like words or language of some sort, unknown to us, frightening, echoing through the valley. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Some people don't want to see Sasquatch, even deny what they've seen. Block it out if they can. Those are the people that have a hard time away from camp. They don't want to go far from the village, and they no longer want to go into the forest. They are afraid. Not all encounters are off in the distance, along the tree line. Some are up close and personal. Scaring, unnerving, unforgettable. Whatever your encounter, they are out there in la forêt, the forest, usually watching us. Some encounters in bush communities are aggressive and even dangerous. Sasquatch gets too close to humans, and they are curious and mysterious, but dangerous and unpredictable. And they can be territorial and scare people from preferred areas. There's stories of entire villages moving because of the Sabe or Sasquatch, who would not leave the area. Others move to the high mountains and are rarely or never seen, just footprints. I'll be watching the tree line and the lake, and little more aware. I might not be safe here in the little green valley, and I will think about returning to my home village near the ocean. Chapter 3, Thinking of Family, Theirs and Mine. Warm, sunny spring mornings that have the birds collecting twigs and dry grasses for their nests, singing their spring love songs and flirting with each other. I spent the better part of the winter writing. It was good to write down some of my old adventures and tales on the trails on paper. Someday my children and my grandchildren and great-grandchildren will read the words I write and recall the old stories, retell the old stories with love, and remember that it wasn't all bad. We were family, living through the ups and downs and experiencing life. Sometimes not so great, other times wonderful, amazing, and would leave you in awe. And each spring life is fully renewed, another year to live a good life. I hear the sound of laughter on the wind, like music. It comes and goes with the breeze. I hear it again, and it's been over the past few days, almost like music. A harmony with Mother Earth, Mother Nature, and Father Time. Suddenly there's a crashing in the woods across the lake, and a tall, large pine falls between the trees. It comes to a crashing halt. No wind, no clouds, just soft blue skies with hints of smoke from far away, from a faraway forest fire. I watched for what seemed like a really long time at the shadows moving through the trees in the forest across the lake. They seemed to be stacking fallen, dead trees. They know I'm here, I think. Yes, they do. They have been watching me for many months. I've seen the big footprints on the soft shoreline in the snow and in the sand, and I hear them, sometimes just before dark, but many times during the day. Their calls and howls echo through the forest and the valley. Loud pop sounds and knocks. Some say knocks are made by mouth, not by a stick hitting a tree. Sounds that come and go and can be near or far away. Sometimes you hear whispers and the hair on the back of your neck stands up. That's when a fear creeps in and you want to get to the safety of the cabin. These encounters are happening almost weekly. Some are sightings like shadows, 2 days in a row, and some are long sessions of me watching with binoculars from a distance. I continue with my daily chores, comforts, and cups of tea, but I'm not comfortable anymore. I'm alert and aware, and it's exhausting. Yeah, it would be exhausting being on high alert. Today is a good day to take inventory and do some spring cleaning. Air out the cabin, burn some cedar and sage, a good cleansing. Behind me in the water, I hear a splashing in the distance. I turn to see a huge dark figure coming out of the lake with a deer slung over one's shoulder, limp and dead. I try to see them as my neighbors. We hunt, they have families too, and have caring ways at times. But like a big grizzly bear, you don't turn your back on them. You stay aware of your surroundings and don't trust them. They are wild animals that cannot be tamed, nor do they want to be tamed. Even the old lone bear hasn't come around for a very long while, and the spring birds that have usually migrated by now seem absent. I've been staying close to the cabin these days. The fear has set in, and the only thing left to do is to leave. Paddle along the lake and beyond towards home. Chapter 4, Rescue Team Pretending That They're Not. It's midday when I see 2 canoes paddling across the lake. My heart is pounding in my chest. The excitement is electric. I put the kettle on the fire and stoke it a bit with a couple new logs. The sound of laughter fills the air and I see some familiar faces. A little bit older, but familiar just the same. Calling out, "Aho!" and waving. It's my 3 oldest grandsons, paddling like grown men and coming across the lake with speed. What a sight for sore eyes, as my mother used to say. They come ashore and leap out of the canoes and run to hug me. Still boys at heart, my heart. We are so happy to see each other. Some tears of joy, and we settle in for some fresh fish over the fire, and of course hot tea. The stories of our home village are told with great enthusiasm, and I'm overcome with guilt. Guilt that I've been gone so long, but it passes and I'm back laughing with these three capable young men. The first thing I ask is, how did you know how to get here? And how did you know I needed you? They all said the same thing. We listened to all your stories, the mountains, the river, the creeks, the valleys, and how many portages and camps along the way. Then we smelled the smoke from your fire for the last of the trail, and here we are. I swell with pride to hear and know that they listened and heard every detail and used those deep details like a map. More than capable and exactly what I need and prayed for. And here they are. My rescue team. They just don't know it yet. We talked around the fire until late into the night. Our laughter and excitement echoes across the lake and through the valley. And in an instant, we all fall silent as a blood-raising howl, followed by screams, echoes back across the lake. I can tell by the look on their faces by firelight and fear that their innocence is gone, and their first sound encounter just happened. Little Hawk asks, "What animal makes those sounds?" And we all look at each other to see who would answer. And then I quietly say, "Sabe." As we gather our things and quietly retreat inside the cabin, I throw a few logs on the fire outside, and the boys get the wood stove going right away inside. The howling and screams drift with the wind and finally fade just before the sun came up. And I just realized that I haven't heard the drums for a while. There's no teepee sightings in the fog, and even the air seemed different, maybe thicker, more dense. We stayed in our bunks long into morning, and I got up to make tea. Quiet shuffling around inside the cabin until I opened the door and stepped out. They were right behind me. Not sure what to expect, but I knew I had to get them out of their fear. And in no time, fish were on the line, then on the fire, and cups of tea were soothing. That's when I told the boys to join me around the fire to talk about what we heard last night. We felt safe together, and I let them talk first. There were many questions, a new reality, and discovery. Sadly, they will never feel the same in the bush or forest. No more carefree. But they are aware now, and that will make them safer and smarter. I tell them there are species roaming around that are part human and part animal, that live in the wilds of many areas. Some keep their distance and remain wild, and some live on the tree lines of humans and curiously watch. And some are vicious and dangerous, even known to kill men and kidnap women and children. They peek through cabin windows and almost scare us to death. And once they come around, they keep coming back. We will make a plan to leave in a day or two, and we all agree. Chapter 5, Planning Our Exit. Warning, graphic dead animal descriptions. That might scare you, okay? We will take all the food stores with us, and the winter shutters will be closed on the windows. All furs and hides will be packed into the canoes. The tree cache and the underground cache are emptied and brought into the cabin to see that nothing is spoiled. Some meat is wrapped in hides and some put in baskets. I'm excited about going home to our village and seeing all our loved ones. My grandsons are impressed with the little cabin and the outdoor kitchen. They take turns telling me how proud they are to have a grandmother like me who can survive in the wilds, alone. They thank me for all the stories and the lessons growing up, and that it has made them the young men they are today. Blessings. They're surprised by how much food I stored away. I told them how I ate fresh fish, berries, and deer meat when I could, and that saved on the dried food. I told them how I thought about what if. What if I get injured? I might not be able to hunt or cook, so I prepared for those what ifs. Being alone in the bush means you rely on yourself and all you've been taught. It was great for the most part, but now I'm ready to leave, and home is calling. And with my grandson's help, this adventurer is heading home. I haven't told them what's been happening. I'll save those encounters for another time. There's been activity across the lake, but we've decided to ignore them and continue to take inventory of what we will take in the canoes. Just then we hear water splashing and screams from the forest across the lake. Two large shadows cross near the creek and out across the valley meadow. The screams continue, mixed with howls and low-tone growls that seem to go right through me. It's unsettling. We all look at each other and come to sit by the fire. The fear on their faces fades, and at least they're on that side of the lake. Little Bear says, "They sound like they're trying to talk to each other, and maybe they are. It sounds like some kind of language." Day is turning into night, and night is becoming the scary time. We had a bit of a feast with all these extra food stores and big pots of tea. We're building up our strength for the adventure ahead. Little Hawk, my youngest grandson, is now being called Hawkeye. He's watching across the lake with the binoculars and keeping us safe. He has a spot along the tree line where there's some brush for cover. It's near the cabin kitchen and the cabin for safety. When he's seen enough, he hands the binoculars to one of the other boys. Another tense night around the fire. The howling was more of a low-tone chant and thrumbling. We spoke quietly of how maybe they're an ancient people. We've heard stories for many hundreds of years and beyond. But the stories I remember most are the ones told around the fire when the children were asleep. Absolutely terrifying encounters. People being watched, followed, chased, and even hunted. Many a hunting party came back full of fear and stories, and some didn't come back at all. Some were found torn to shreds with blood and bone everywhere, some mangled and hung high in a tree, and some just vanished, never to be seen again. Women, children, mothers with children. When people disappear out of your life without a reasonable explanation, it can be hard to cope with the grief that has too many questions, mostly unanswered questions. I need a cup of tea to settle my nerves. Yeah, no kidding. Chapter 6, Leaving This Place and Returning to Another. I know some of you might say, stand your ground, but it's best to step aside for nature and let it take its course. Sometimes we interfere too much and upset the balance of things. I went to a zoo once. I didn't stay long, and I cried all the way and long after we left. A memory I would forget if I could. A reminder that we all connect and need to respect other living beings and animals, plants, and the unknown. Little Tree is up most of the night, keeping the fires going and keeping watch. Again, the howling and screaming went on most of the night. At one point, I thought I could hear whispering outside the cabin. I lay here thinking. The limping fox is now gone. I miss his alarm barks. The birds are gone too. It's like some of the life has been scared away. It's not a very happy place anymore, and we are leaving in the morning. And that next morning couldn't come soon enough. I woke before the sun, the dim light of the fireplace. All the boys were sleeping, but woke easily as I made tea and shuffled around, handing them each a cup and a piece of dry meat, and quietly said, "Get ready, boys, we're leaving at first light." And in the gray glow, just before dawn, we loaded the canoes with all we could. Small bits of dry fish and deer meat with berries in small baskets were left on a large old stump as a gift, an offering, an understanding. In hopes that we could quietly slip away along the shoreline, then head over to the creek, line walk the canoes loaded with supplies upstream until we reach the other lake before the river. The portages will be hard work and long travel, and the paddling will be glorious. Each dip getting us closer to our home village. I put 2 more logs on the outdoor fire, and we pushed away from shore. I won't look back, and I didn't. When we reached the creek and got out of the canoes, we roped our canoes for pulling, then took one look across the lake to see the smoke coming from the chimney and the outdoor fire. It was a good home to me, but I won't be back. I wonder if this is why all the people left this area many years ago. Because they have a territory, they, meaning Sasquatch. As a large rock splashes into the lake near the mouth of the creek, we all jump and look up the hill to see the hairy man looking right at us. We quickly look away and begin pulling the canoes up the creek, followed by a few knocks and a blood-curdling scream. Then silence. I felt like I was holding my breath and forced myself to relax. The boys talked a little and made a few hand signs to each other instead of speaking out loud. Our pace was steady, and we ate along the way. If we could cross the next lake before dark, we could wake early for the first long portage, but pulling the heavy canoes up creek was tiring. We set up camp at the edge of the next lake. Some call this Dark Lake, and it was. We slept out under the stars with hides to keep us dry from the heavy morning spring dew, and somewhere in the distance we could hear the howling and the screaming through the valley and the trees. Farther away than at the cabin, but still frightening. We didn't sleep much that night, and again I thought I heard whispers through the trees. How could a place so beautiful turn so strange so fast? One day you're living your best life, and the next day you're fleeing for your life and the lives of your grandsons. My rescue team. My heart. And here we are, another sleepless night in the wilds on the adventure of our lives. And the best part is that we're all together to strengthen each other, comfort and reassure each other, and to protect each other, no matter what or who. The sun begins to rise as we push the canoes into the lake. Our paddles are quietly dipping, and we feel our stomachs wanting tea and fish. We will eat later, and no fires for tea. We need to put distance on the map and keep going until we must stop. I'm so thankful for these strong young men. They will continue the ways and the knowledge long after I'm gone. They'll tell the old stories and teach the young for generations to come. It's late in the day when we reach the next portage. We're tired and hungry and need to rest. A fire for tea and warm up some dry meat and fish. Sleep came easy just before dark, and we woke to hear drums somewhere in the distance. No wind, just silence, then drums. It floats on a light breeze, then fades. Then we're startled by knocks very close to where we're laying on the ground with hides. A few logs are put on the fire, and we wait out the night in complete fear. The drums stopped hours ago, and the almost silent fear has gripped us and won't let us go. I don't know how much more I can take. It's exhausting and draining. The howls still echo at a distance, and one more tree knock close to us. I say tree knock, it could just be a sound they make with their mouth. The boys take turns keeping watch and putting wood on the fire with a few long branches in case we need weapons to protect ourselves and each other. I wouldn't want to fight a full-grown bear, let alone a Sasquatch. Chapter 7, Rest Then Home. It was a bear or a Sasquatch in our little camp last night. Almost scared us to death. We load the canoes just before dawn and slip offshore and across the dark water. Let's talk about good energy and vibrations, I tell the boys. We wonder if we sing, if that will keep them away or draw attention. It's not long before we reach another portage, a short portage with lots of trips back and forth. I get a small fire going for tea, and eventually we're all together with the canoes, our supplies, cups of tea, and a bite to eat. We have a short paddle ahead and another portage, then we'll set up camp and rest. The air has thinned a bit and seems easier to breathe. We start to notice all the spring blooms and take turns naming the plants, the flowers, the shrubs, and the trees. Each step takes us closer and closer to the safety of our home village. This long portage today really took the strength out of me, and I need to rest for a day or two. I'm not as young as I used to be. A small lean-to is set up in no time. The fire is going, food is cooking, and hot tea is ready. It's near dark as I nod off to sleep, and what a sleep it was. I needed that. I didn't wake till the sun came up. My brave grandsons watched over camp while I slept. All was quiet through the night, and we all felt a little more rested. We will rest here for an hour or two and continue on to the next paddle. We still have a little over a day away to go, and we can camp upriver tonight, and we'll be home by tomorrow afternoon, if all goes well, and we'll arrive with gifts for all, with food and herbs and stories to exchange. And my grandsons and I will never be the same again. We have a new bond. After lighting a small bundle of sage, we gather round to cleanse for the next part of our journey, our adventure, and off we go, pushing the canoes into the water with a spring in our step, and soon the songs. As we paddle the last lake crossing, we are in familiar lands and waters. And these more than capable young men, my grandsons, sing all the way across the lake, and our people begin to gather on the far shore, calling out to us and welcoming us, more singing and prayers. Aho! By the time we reach our shore, we were all crying, some tears of joy and some tears of relief. Our welcome party was crying too as we pulled our heavy canoes ashore, many hands to carry the loads up to the main village lodge. It's so good to be home with the ones I love. I half forgot why I left in the first place. An old uncle came to visit and found out where I went and sent my grandsons to go get me. He knew there were stories of that place and a village from long ago. He feared for my life. There were many people who feared for me once it was figured out where I went. If I knew the stories of that area, I would have replanned my adventure in another direction. My family, my grown children, my grandchildren are all there to welcome us home. And I'm so thankful to my grandsons, the village, and my family. I was already thinking of leaving my little camp because of the Sasquatch family across the lake, but I wasn't sure of when and how, and their arrival at my little camp was just what I needed. It's all a memory now, mostly good, but also scary. I'll settle back into a routine and my belonging to this wonderful village. I tell everyone of my grandson's bravery and how they took good care of me, my rescue party, my heart. But we hold back on the encounters with Sasquatch. That's left for around the fire when the small children are asleep. The villagers know that we've had encounters, and they will all be sitting around the fire tonight waiting to hear what happened. And they will. We're almost splitting with excitement to tell our story. Stories. Chapter 7. Oh, okay. And there are stories that even my grandsons haven't heard yet. It's going to be a long night or two. The food and stories will be abundant. And of course, cups of hot tea. And that's the end of chapter 7. And chapter 8 is planning our next adventure. We're all settled into our village routines around the village, and it feels so good to be home. My grandsons have taken to make sure I have all that I need, with eager listening ears and cups of tea and the old stories from long, long ago. Life is even better now, maybe because I'm not just seen as an old woman. Now they see my life, my experiences, knowledge and bush skills, and the more I see them maturing and gaining the knowledge they'll need to survive in this amazing but tough world. She's got here, all you spoiled and disrespectful kids and grandkids need to smarten up before it's too late. Go find your elders and help them whenever you can, in whatever way you can. Chop wood, carry water, bring fresh food and meat, and above all, give your elders your time. Sit with them, encourage the storytelling, and not only listen to the stories, but remember them. Write it all down. Write a book or short stories before the stories are lost. Tell it all, the scary, the dangerous, the hard life, the love, and of course the funny bits too. For someday you can retell them from memory and pass down the knowledge, the wisdom, and the love. I'm with the little ones for most of the first night and for many days. They have missed me, missed loving me. Funny stories, lessons, and snuggling by the fire together. And I have missed them too. I almost cry at the end of each day to see how blessed I am. I'm so thankful and reassured that I'll always have a place with my loved ones and a place in their memories. It's been a great summer full of laughter, stories, and small adventures into the nearby forest for gathering herbs and greens, and a couple adventures to the ocean shore where the men in kayaks went fishing and came back full of fish for the smokers. And we walked the shoreline looking for clams and crabs and the odd eel or octopus that get trapped in the rocks. Sometimes the abundance of food is overwhelming. How could anyone go hungry? But it happens. People that live in big cities think that food comes from grocery stores, and they don't think beyond that. Somewhere there are farmers that grow that food and get it to the market, and ranchers that raise those animals like cattle, cow, pig, chickens, etc., and get them to the markets to feed the population. It's a huge, hard work process, and it's getting more expensive every day. We need to grow a garden and be responsible for at least some of our food. or research and teach yourself how to forage country food, or find a mentor, a teacher, take a bush course. You might surprise yourself at how good you are at it. And the more you work at something, the better you get. And the next thing you know, you've built up your self-esteem and are feeling better about yourself. My grandsons are here to plan our next adventure. My oldest grandson, Little Bear, is now called Brave Bear for all his bravery to come and rescue me and lead us safely home. Little Tree is now called Mighty Oak for standing his ground and keeping watch over us on the trail. Little Hawk is now called Hawkeye for watching for danger and also keeping us safe on the trail. That's nice. After hearing of our bush encounters with the Sasquatch family, the villagers and our families look at us different. They even treat us different. There's a quiet level of respect and a well-earned place among the storytellers. Looking back, I now see that we were lucky to make it out alive. Our next adventure will be in the spring. We'll have the winter to plan it all out, and it won't be as far away. It seems the plan is to return to my childhood village just across the lake. I wonder if my father's cabin is still standing. Do the ancestors still sing and drum through the night? We're excited to return to a place we've been to before, where we were welcomed by ancestral singing and memories, where the food was abundant, the grandsons thrived, and of course, hot cups of tea. The end. And the series was called People Who Live with Nature. Thank you for allowing me to read these old stories. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. We thank Grandmother Gentle Bear for writing down all her life, and so that all these stories could be passed down. This is the end of the 3-book series about the lives of people who live with nature. There are other stories to be read and written and told. Thank you, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified of new videos. Every time you like and subscribe or leave a comment, it helps this little channel grow, and I can bring you more stories and new adventures. And the next story I read could be yours. Until next time, remember to be kind to nature and go out into the forest as often as you can.